Welcome to Grow and Give, a modern victory garden project from Colorado State University Extension. We're here to help you learn to grow food for yourself, your family, your neighbors, and your community. Insect pests of vegetables, cabbage flea beetles, pale stripe flea beetles, and eggplant, tomato, potato flea beetles. Flea beetles attack a number of our plants in the vegetable garden, but they're not all the same type of flea beetle. There is a difference between the ones that we find on our cabbage plants, cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, kale, and some of the mustards. Then there is more of a generalist flea beetle, such as the pale stripe flea beetle, which has a number of different hosts that it attacks. And then there is the one that focuses on eggplant, tomatoes, and potatoes. In general, flea beetle adults are the ones that we can see doing damage to our plants. They chew shot holes in the leaves themselves. You can see here in this photograph that there's small holes chewed completely through the leaf itself. The plants that are most at risk from having a lot of damage from flea beetles are those that are in the seedling stage. If the plant is young and the flea beetles are attacking in mass, because that's how flea beetles work, the seedling can be outright killed by these insects because they'll eat them down to a nub. They'll lay eggs, which hatch in about 10 to 15 days. The western cabbage flea beetle is the one that attacks our mustard family plants, such as our cabbages, beets, lettuce, broccolis, or kales. They attack these plants in mass, and they can cause a lot of damage. The adults will overwinter in garden debris, and they're strong flyers. So even if you rotate your crops and put them in a different area next year, these flea beetles, once they've emerged for the season, will be able to find them. There are 3 generations per year, so in general, you're always going to have pressure from this kind of flea beetle out if you plant the cabbages or the broccolis or beets and that type of thing. The pale striped flea beetle is one that is a vicious, vicious feeder on so many different types of plants. It goes after our beans, beets, melons, potatoes, squash, tomatoes, lettuce. As you can see, there are several different generations per year, and that's why this flea beetle is a problem on both cool season and warm season crops. They're active in the late spring, and then they come back around and are active again in late July. The flea beetle that breaks the most gardeners' hearts are the ones that are on eggplant, tomatoes, and potatoes. The family that they favor are the nightshades, and they can also go after our chilies and peppers too. The adults also will overwinter in garden debris, and they emerge in June to attack our plants. Now in June, many of these plants, such as the eggplant, the tomato, or the peppers, will be littler seedlings. Those are the ones that are most at risk from serious damage from flea beetles. But the good news is there's generally only 1 generation per year. We have to protect our plants early if we're going to keep them from getting too damaged by this particular flea beetle. What can we do to control flea beetles? Well, there are several approaches that a gardener can take. Meticulously clean up the garden in fall so that we rob these insects of a place to overwinter. If we do that, then we'll have fewer pests in the spring. Prepare the planting bed well, turning the soil over and prepping it in spring, where you're bringing those insects back up to the surface and exposing them to birds that might be foraging in the area. Some gardeners will plant more than enough plants out there. They'll overplant figuring that if they put out enough for everybody, at least they'll get some kind of a harvest. You could try a trap crop, such as a dakin radish. A dakin radish is a favorite food for flea beetles, and if you're going to use it as a trap crop, you want to make sure it's at least 10 yards or further away from the plants that you want to protect. And you need to have a plan for once the flea beetles are attracted to it. If you don't have a plan to control them when they're on your trap crop, the flea beetles will eat that down and then come back into your garden. So have a plan for control, such as vacuuming, with a vacuum that has a soft suction to it, pulling the flea beetles from the plants and into a bag that's in the vacuum itself. You don't want to use a vacuum with a strong suction. We're not going to get out there with a 5-horsepower shop vac, or you'd pull the whole plant out of the ground and you become the biggest flea beetle out there. Instead, use something like a little dust devil to pull these insects off, and then make sure you pull that bag out and throw it away. You could use a floating row cover. A floating row cover to protect your plants before they come into blossom is fantastic. It's a lightweight fabric designed to keep insects out. And if you know that you had no bug problems in that area of the garden last year, and you put your crops that you want to protect into it this year, put a floating row cover over it to make sure you keep those bugs out. But a couple of notes on using a floating row cover. It gets very warm underneath them. And if we start warming up early in the season, unfortunately, you're going to have to open that floating row cover up or it gets too hot underneath. Also, it keeps all kinds of insects away, even the ones that help pollinate the plant. So once these plants come into flower, those plants such as your tomatoes or your peppers, you'll want to remove that floating row cover so that pollinators can help you out. If you'd like to try some other things, neem oil is really good for smothering the flea beetle and giving it problems by clogging up the trachea or their breathing holes within the body. Diatomaceous earth can also be effective. It's a repellent. It won't kill the bugs, but it is an irritant to them, and they hop off that particular plant because the diatomaceous earth is so irritating to the insect body. On some plants like cabbage, you could try kaolin clay, Kaolin. It's what it sounds like. It's clay mixed in water to form a white coating on the plants. What happens is the insects will land on the plant and they'll get this dusty clay on their bodies and they'll become distracted by it, or it irritates their body. The problem with kaolin clay is you can't get it off of your fruits. It doesn't wash off readily. So don't apply it to eggplants that have fruit on them. Don't apply it to the tomato fruits, etc. But you can use it successfully on the plants before they start setting fruit, or on something like a cabbage. Grow food. Give locally. Support your community. Contact your local CSU Extension office